we're going to get started.
Thank you. First, because we don't have an officer here tonight, so we canceled the last minute.
I will make a motion that we elect Rich as our moderator.
We're going to start with the introduction of the board members.
Bradley Marlborough,
Bruce Olmsted, Hebron.
Joe O'Connor, Hebron.
Mario Hebron.
And Richard Jacobson Eben. And Yanni is supposed to be showing up from Marble, sort of, like, right about
Right
now.
on.
Right on.
Okay, so why don't we stand around and...
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, especially on such a very short notice. On this meeting, we're planning to do a budget workshop. So the plans are to run till 9 o'clock, so we're planning to end it at 9. We are gonna, first, Dr. Svinsky has a thing that he wants to talk about. Bruce has a very short presentation that he wants to make. And then at that point, we're gonna just open it up for discussion. We really wanna hear from you. It's very important. So with that said,
Thank you. I think it's important to note, I just want to put this meeting into a context. If the budget is not approved at the next referendum, the current budget is automatically appropriated for the next year. What does that mean? I think that if the budget must reduce so that the mandates, salary increases, health insurance, transportation, special education services are addressed. The staff reduction would have to take place to reflect the appropriation. What does that mean for the principals in central office? First, we're going to have to name the teachers that will be reduced, decide on what specific course offerings will be provided, develop a master schedule, work with guidance to place students in the appropriate classes. Again, there will have to be additional unemployment insurance budgeted for, and course offerings will be greatly reduced. For example, and NEAS must be notified of any drastic reduction in programming. Implications of the state budget, right now as I understand it, and this shifts from day to day, there are 4 budgets. The governor's budget, the House budget, the Senate Democrats, and the Senate Republicans. So the information I've received from some of the associations to which I belong is that we probably will see a budget in September. Why is this important? I think it's important to note that in the current budget as proposed counts on about $608,000 in special education excess cost to help fund those programs. ECS is an integral part of the revenue, and we're not sure what is going to happen to ECS. And again, as I said, the state budget will not be finalized in September. So that's the context that we're having this discussion in. Thank you.
any questions on what Dr. Svinsky just said? We're scheduled for June 12th to have our board meeting where we're expecting to put a budget forward for a June 21st district meeting followed with June 22nd budget referendum. All goes well.
That's our regular board meeting. And I,
But because of notification, we would have to do it on the 12th in order to meet the time to get into the paper and all that.
And we shortened the time simply because we're using Insurance Inquirer that publishes every day. Our goal is to get the budget added in the paper the following I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted, Matt Liker, 62 Lowewood Road, Cleveland. I just wanted to add to Bob's comments that an important factor is, yes, you're appropriated next year's budget. I'm sorry, current year budget if we don't pass the budget this time. But you're also only allowed to spend 1/12 each month. So that could impact summer projects, summer purchasing, because that's the statute.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to Bruce's short, but don't hesitate to ask questions.
Can I ask you a question? Well, which sets up. So, Dr. Sinisi, you mentioned, if the budget does not pass, that we would have to look at making some staff cuts.
Right.
And you mentioned teachers specifically. But again, is there any sacred cows? Are we looking at administration? Are we looking at central office? Are we looking at any?
No, secret. I mentioned that because that's the largest group. I think that if that comes to pass, I think we need to look at the entire district, because I think that that's only appropriate. I think there are some issues with collective bargaining agreements that must be honored, but other than that, I think, the district would be drastically changed, and therefore there isn't any way to escape that.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure people understand that it's not just teachers.
Yeah, that's right.
We're looking at
No,
staff.
it's
Everybody.
Okay, great. Can everyone hear me? All right, so tonight is a budget workshop. So how that differs from our normal meetings is that I don't get to listen to you, and then you only get to listen to me. It's an interactive meeting, so we're going to take place. You can ask questions anytime you want to. We just ask that everyone be respectful of one another, and that everyone understands everybody's neighbors here. So we're going to treat everyone as if they're neighbors. And if we have to, we will shut down people that become personal. If it becomes a personal issue, we please ask that you don't do it in here. Okay? So just so everyone understands. Let's see if this actually works. Okay, so here's our challenge. We have, this was the increase, the current proposed increase that just was voted down was $838,222 more dollars than it was last year. And a lot of the questions that I've been getting is that people don't know where that came from. So what happens is in the newspapers, such as these, there's a lot of misinformation going around. We want to make sure tonight that you understand, just because you hear it or you read it in one of these, or if you even see it on the Rham page, it may be wrong, or it may just be misleading. And we'll get to one of those examples tonight. The next area is mandated programs. We have a series of mandated programs that we have to pay for. So these are things such as contractual obligations. We also have mandated programs such as busing is a mandated program. We must provide a seat for every child on a bus to get into this school. We have adjustments to staffing that is occurring because of declining enrollment. And we want to make sure everyone understands that. And then the final thing is the Rham budget transparency. I honestly don't know how these people stay out here as we're discussing budgets back here, because we are not transparent enough. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this presentation tonight. So to eliminate misinformation, let's go to some things that you can see. If you go to the Rham website, this object line would have come up. It would have said, last year we approved $124,000 for coaches. This year we've approved $252,000 for coaches, and there's a $127,000 discrepancy. Yet, in the fact sheet we gave you out, it says, there's $25,000 more, guys. Why? Well, this is a net budget. This includes all of the revenues, pay-to-play revenues that they collect at gates. This does not. So you have to watch out where the information comes from, and unfortunately, we do not have a solution to how to probe. We have asked this to be changed, but no solution has been given yet. So it's going to, even next time, look like there's a big raise in coaches. One of the other things that came out, and that's in this article here, This article, now, I as an individual am speaking right now, I don't agree with this article. It has never been in this article what they've been saying. We put in coaches in to try to make it a better athletic experience, but we did not take that at the expense of teachers. It was never intended to be that way, but that's the way this article reads. Okay? We will probably propose this next time we come through so you can see that actually the athletic budget would have gone down for this year. Mandated programs. There was a small list that was put out that stopped here. That was put out in the fact sheets. It stopped because we forgot about that. But this is our mandated contractual increases. Special education is almost 2%. It's gone up. Health insurance is up 1.23%. Overall, if we took every budget and put a 0 on every budget, we would have sent out to you guys a 5.37% increase, because that's mandated as to what's occurred.
Any questions on that one? Yeah.
Does everyone understand?
That shows us the problem that we're dealing with.
The next area was declining enrollment. So unfortunately, Rham is seeing some declines. This is just the 3-year snapshot. So over 3 years, we've lost 100 kids. There'll be less than 100 kids. Back in 2013, 2014 to 2017, 2018 budget, we'll have lost 238 students. And unfortunately, after the administration looked at that, that meant the total decline from the 2013, 2014 to today needed to be about 10 teachers. That's the reason teachers are out, not athletics. It is strictly due to numbers.
Is there any corresponding reduction in non-teaching administrative staff as the school population decreases?
There could be. Currently, there isn't.
There is one.
Oh, there is. There is one administrative position that was cut. That's correct. It was a $48,000 position.
It was the secretarial position.
Yeah. Right.
I provide the support for this. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's a support person for the administration was cut this year.
All right, I'll ask a question later.
Okay.
Can you just state your name for the record when your people are asking questions?
Yes, Eric Shevchenko, and
So part of the Rham budget that we're looking at is transparency and fiscal responsibility. We are probably one of the lowest per capita costs in the state. We're down at $14,601. We placed all of the comparisons up here to give you some idea. Region 4 is at 17.5. E.O. Smith is at 18. These other ones are actually elementary schools, so it's not comparing apples to apples, but it's still showing you that the only one lower than us is Marlboro on this list. And this is not a high school setting. So it should not reflect anything. It just reflects what's going on. Yes, sir?
Eric Shevchenko, and if I take the number of students in Rham and I divide it into the total budget.
Okay, so yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So you want me to, can I interrupt or you want me to? Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. That number comes out to $19,600 per student, which is $5,000 more than that number.
So these numbers that we're showing you here is how you can compare school districts to school districts. So what happens is the state of Connecticut dictates, they said, this is what you have to include and this is what you cannot include when you give us a per capita cost. So that everyone's playing on the same level playing field. Correct, Bob?
Correct. And
So-
so, give me a moment, I can give you the chapter citation.
Yes, okay. So that's how these numbers are generated, and these numbers are the last ones generated by the state, so they're the 2015-16 budget year, not current. So that's why it reflects differently than what you're doing.
I just want to point out that it's not The total number.
And none of the budgets are that way.
Yeah, okay, per student,
Yeah.
the total number is not 14,600, it's 19,600.
We understand that, but what I'm saying is you've got to, in order to make comparisons to other districts, this is a set schedule on how you develop this number. So this company, the Region 4 has to do the same thing, E.O. Smith has to do the same thing. What that number is that you're dictating depends upon their budgets, and I cannot tell you what those are. Yep.
That, the net current expenditure is defined by Connecticut General Statute, section 10-261A3. And the source of that information is the ED-001 that every district needs to complete by September 30th and is audited to ensure that it's correct and appropriate.
Do you know what figures go into this ED-01? What are the figures like that, so that they come up with this 14,000?
EDO1 is, when we report EDO1 numbers, it's the whole entire budget of what we spent. What Bruce has here is this is regular education per pupil cost, so there would be no special ed.
Okay, that's very good.
Sorry, that might be where you're
No, it's
taking the
not.
total
That's not.
budget and dividing it by the number of students.
But that wouldn't add up to $5,000 per student. So I know.
For instance,
I don't know.
what is not counted in net current expenditures is debt service. So what's the current debt service? How many million dollars?
2.6, close to 2.6
2.6 what?
million.
Million, okay. And what else isn't included in there is transportation, because transportation varies depending on your town. I mean, we have very high transportation compared to the cities per person. So those numbers are not included in net current expenditure, and there are a few others, I don't recall them offhand.
And that right now would be the big one compared to
That's $1 million too.
the elementary schools who, I can't speak for Marvel, the others are not high in debt right now.
Correct.
The schools are.
Correct.
And our debt schedule, did you have a slide on that?
We have a slide on it, so we'll get to that in a minute.
I just had a question. Lisa Alaka, Marlboro, Connecticut. If you need to know my street, it's Kirsten Circle. These figures here, are they from the Region 4 and E.O. Smith? I'm imagining they're in our dirt.
So, well, E.O. Smith High School is Mansfield.
No, are you looking at a comparative where those towns or those regions are in the same dirt as Rham is? So that's a comparison of kind of like towns.
No, they're not. They're not all in the same.
Okay, that was a question. So, because economics has a lot to do with that number as well.
The reason I pulled Regional 4 up, because there's very few regional schools that match ours in the 7 to 12.
Right.
And that happened to be one that matches. If you look at the numbers and if you look at high schools, as a high school or a middle school, high school, I cannot find anyone that's lower than what we are.
Okay.
On per dual. But the numbers are not that clear because there's lower numbers, but they all include elementary schools.
Just because the economics of the towns could be very different, that's why, okay.
But Region 4 is Durham.
Was Region 4, what's Region 4?
I was just looking at your.
East River. Yep.
I was just looking at the per pupil expenditures and the.
Chester, Deep River, Essex.
Did you just?
Chester, Deep River, and Essex.
Tim Kane, you a quick question, make sure I'm understanding this. That the RAM number and all those numbers do not include special education. Is that correct?
They're all equal numbers, so they won't include the elements they were talking about, special ed, transportation, and debt.
Yeah, correct.
So if, Lauren Hebrew, that if you went through and just took the total number of students and divided them into the total budget, all of those numbers for all of the towns would be different. This is a standardized way of
Why?
If you go to the Department of Education website, this is where this information comes from.
Mhm.
It's not generated by the folks here at Rham, because when you deal with something that's this complicated and somewhat controversial, I would rather rely on the Department of Ed calculating it, because you know everybody's being treated equally.
One more question, does this count the kids that we pay for who go to prep schools? Magnet
Does it
schools?
include magnet school costs?
We have a line item in the budget for magnet.
No, what she's saying is,
Does that-
we don't know.
We don't know, okay.
Well, I
No, I
think,
think-
I think it does. I think this covers magnet schools.
Including tuition,
I've got the list in front of you.
Yeah.
non-sped tuition payments.
To understand the question, Bob, is do these pure per pupil costs include magnet schools?
Looking at the list of the Department of Education, I don't see any magnet schools on it. They're strictly just, yeah, because we pay tuition to the magnet schools.
Right, so does this per pupil
But we
cost
also get the
include magnet
ECF.
schools? Like, so with the extra 5 or 10 grand that we pay per student, is it included in this equation? Is it-
Yes, it's in the EDO one. I don't know if it's removed because of this. I don't know the answer to that.
I got that, we don't know.
No, that's okay, because you have to take that money off the top when you're
Right.
figuring out per pupil.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things that we were asked to look at with our debt service and why we want to be fiscally responsible is this was one of our options. When we went to refinance the bonds, you can see here that there is a $200,000 delta that is hitting this year on us. And that is because there was some taking money up front on some of the other bonds that were sold, and then it reflects, so we end up with this year's budget with a $200,000 increase in principal. One of the ways to offset that would have been to take all of the interest up front. Now, this is a representative, so it's not exact. I don't want anyone to come back out of here and say the numbers are perfect, but this is kind of what would have happened. We would have had a drop of about $500,000 the first year, and then we would have added about $100,000 every year to the costs because we're taking the money up front. And so we would have had this nice low number for this year, and it was asked for us to look into this. But when we looked at this graph, we said, this is not a good fiscally responsible. This is how the state of Connecticut operates. Pay this year's budget, but don't worry about the ones down the road. So instead, we did this. So we still have the $200,000 delta that we had to deal with, but when we sold the bonds, we were able to bring down the interest rates a little bit so that we could only have a $100,000 increase instead of a $200,000 increase this year. But you also notice it's the same every year until there is a major drop, which occurs in 2022-23. So we have not pushed off a fiscal responsibility to the next budget. So unfortunately, it would have been nice to take it up front and be able to say, hey, we just got rid of $500,000 worth of problems, but it would not have been, it wouldn't have been prudent for us to do that. So everyone understands, this we cannot go back on now. We've sold the bonds, we're running through this service, and we've picked up $100,000 in savings. I mean, it's really good.
Bruce is referring to some bonds that we refinanced about 2 months ago.
The bonds that were refinanced were the bonds that were used to close out the project in 2007. The statute says that we could refinance them at the end of 10 years. And with interest rates substantially lower, we decided that this was a good time to refinance the bonds, and then the board decided how to apply the savings.
So that brings us back to the problem. So 5.375 was the amount that we had to break down. We're down to 4.02 overall and 2.99 in this budget. So we have dramatically dropped the costs regardless. And now we're trying to figure out a way to bring them down a little bit more or sufficiently enough so everyone is satisfied that we've done our job to make sure that we're giving you quality education, make sure we still include enough athletics and enough extracurricular so that we keep the kids engaged and moving and going forward and make this one of the highest performing school districts in this state. So from there, we really need suggestions on where to look. So we're looking for input from you guys as to, okay, brainstorm a little bit for us, help us out here a little bit. What areas do you want us to look into? What areas can we consider that are areas that we can reduce the cost but still end up with a quality thing? So one of the ideas that was given and has been implemented already was we have a couple of school textbooks that we've gone to online textbooks for a dramatic savings in costs. So that's some of the areas to look at. I mean, that's thinking way outside the box, but it also brought down about a $50,000 reduction in textbooks, I believe is what one of the latest was. So that's the sort of thing we're asking the public, okay, you've seen our budget, you've seen our problem, how can you give us a hand? And we'd really like to hear from your input. So what I'm going to do is back up one slide, I hope. I can figure this out. No. There we go. And put this up so you understand where we can't cut.
So, open floor here. Anyone who's got an extra $2 million in their pocket?
But I think before you, not to put all the pressure on the public, because that's not their job, right? This is our job to be able to find this. We certainly would value your input, but by no means are we looking for you to actually tell us, go to line 55 and save, $20,000 there. That's not the point of this. It's really just, I guess, brainstorm and feel what's important to you, what you can live without, and maybe help us go in that direction instead. Do you value academics? Do you value the fact that we don't want to cut teachers potentially or other staff? Do you want to maybe forego some athletic improvements or some field improvements or whatever the case may be? What are the things that really stand out to you and are important? And there really are no sacred cows. That's the big thing, right? Because if we start saying, well, we can't touch this and we can't touch that, then that goes against the whole principle. Because what I've heard from town leaders is, you gotta get it down. We're all making hard decisions across the board, and the board needs to do the same thing. If that's the case, everybody has to listen and just be cognizant of all the changes and all the items that potentially can be effective.
With that in mind, I would like to bring up some line.
Make sure you state your name and,
You all get a copy. Keith Pettit, 92 Old Colchester Road, Hebron. I don't know if you're able to bring up the budget so that people can follow along, but I have 5 object lines that I'm personally confused on, and I would like you guys to take about 5 or 10 minutes on each one to explain it.
Can we put the budget up? Is that possible?
This is their computer, so I don't have no clue.
Is there internet in here still? Oh, there is.
Yeah,
Or-
Wi-Fi.
yeah, Wi-Fi.
Right, so then-
You want to drive
Okay.
So you're one that guy tonight.
And now again, I'm just bringing these up because they're a little confusing. I'm not saying they need to be cut. Some of them may be contractual and they can't be cut, but these are objects that they brought my attention immediately to them.
Do you know where it's highest, Rich?
I couldn't find
The budget? You gotta go to the district website, there you go. Go to budget info. And first link.
Ooh. Okay, so I need to sign a name.
Yeah, go back one.
Hit the back one.
couldn't find it.
And under budget info, top link.
Yep. Yep.
Doesn't want to agree higher.
Yeah, so you have to,
Rotate.
right. So what I did was I saved it to the desktop, so in PDF you can rotate it. You can't really
That's the
rotate
best
it.
picture you got. So keep it there. It's
Desktop,
relaxing.
yeah. Yep. So now in the bottom right corner, click on
He's got the same problem. You get the PDF, you just rotate the PDF.
Oh, the second one down in the middle, second from the top in the middle.
I did Tom. That's fine. I didn't go to district.
Right, is that it? Yes.
I thought it would be right under the line.
And so now you should, so now you should have the right page.
There it is.
Right click.
On the left.
It worked. No, I worked on my own.
You can.
I can figure out.
Because you have to download it as a PDF. But it's PDF
I
now.
just did it.
Is
Mine
that
worked
right?
fine on my,
It's got a little thing right there, right?
Yeah, won't let you do it.
There you
no,
go.
mine was on, yeah. Mine was on the right. Worked on mine at home.
He's having trouble with the PC.
It's right next to the page count where it says 1 of 29.
Left to the blue arrow, the blue arrow.
Left of that.
Oh, left.
There you go.
Good job, Mike.
What do you
I'm gonna wait on this.
Much easier this time.
Yeah.
Percentage.
So, my first question was on object 150. And if you guys want to, I don't know if you guys want to take it from here?
Yeah, the hardest one.
Oh, they're yourself.
Do you wanna make any comments on that, like maybe 3 or 4 pages?
So,
Yes. You gotta look at administration.
so. Okay.
Why don't we do that one last?
You want to do that? We can circle back.
That's okay.
And call
You're
it.
not going to be able to see it here, so let me try to explain what Mr. Pettit
Yes. Thank you.
is discussing. Object 150 is considered other wages. The account number that you're looking at is an account that's called negotiation provision. The negotiation provision is the dollar amount in there is for contracts that are not negotiated yet. So therefore, employees, personnel line items are budgeted at what they're currently earning, or if indeed, if in their contract they were moving up a step for next year. So therefore, until the board negotiates contracts, a dollar amount gets put into the fiscal, gets put into the negotiation provision. So that we set aside money that then will get moved once the contracts are negotiated, based on whatever the increase is.
For example, we're in negotiations now with a non-certified union, so that the contract would begin July 1st. And to keep the amount of money that the board had to appropriate some money for increases by lumping it all into one line item, that number is, has to be kept confidential. Just because if somebody said there was 10% in there, people say, okay, I want 10%. This way it isn't give and take in negotiations.
Yeah.
Early return,
I'm sorry?
the early return initiative, I'll just show you board.
This, the middle school, the object 234 is designated for early retirement incentive. So we have teachers who, when they retire, they receive an incentive for over 3 years, I believe it is. So these are people who have retired, but they still receive funds. And Dr. Szymanski can talk about the incentive part of it because it happened before I was here, but it's the provision to pay these people that we still owe money to.
The idea was to get people to announce that they're going to retire ahead of time, especially when the teachers were in short supply. This is a provision in the contract. If I'm not mistaken, there's a sunset clause in it, and I think there are less than 5 people available that are eligible for it at this particular time.
So that would be the total amount to pay out all 5.
I'm sorry?
That would be the total amount to pay out all 5.
No, because some of them haven't announced yet. It's only when they announce it.
But you're setting aside enough in case all 5 did.
No, there's a group of them that did announce their retirement, so we're funding those people right now. There were some that announced their
Well, why did
retirement.
you return so much of it last year?
I'm sorry?
Why did you return so much of it last year?
We had one teacher that
Renee-
rescinded his, or, their retirement in the area of critical need, so we're all for that.
Right, right. I just don't want an allocation out there that exceeds the maximum total encumbrance.
I we should probably avoid take a closer look at that one. But
I mean, I don't have a problem if we're, hedging against all five, but.
yeah, it's more than five, it's a bunch of the ones that are already.
I'd have to get a list of people.
Right.
Okay. So just something to think about.
Thank you.
435.
Let's skip that one. So,
Sure.
610?
610, let's go. Non-instructional. So you're questioning the overall 610 object code with the increase of 11?
No, it was specific to SW non-instructional
Oh,
general
sorry.
supply.
I missed that part.
Sorry.
Non-instructional general supplies.
I know you guys probably did a lot of budget cuts or, held a lot of spending this year to try to bring that down
That
to zero.
is, where's Lauren? That's the paper, isn't it? The principal's office used to have their copy of paper in their own budget, so then we got into, are you laughing? We got into,
Yes.
you took 20 pieces of paper from the middle school and moved it down to the high school, and I said, this is crazy, let's move it system-wide. Everybody can have everybody's paper, we don't have to sit there and dole out. So that's why, so the high school and the middle schools, and probably the central office, their copy paper was removed and moved over to system-wide. So that's why there's 0 this year and an increase of 20. That was just a moving the budget
Okay.
item from one place to another.
So we would have seen a corresponding reduction in
Somewhere you see
HS
it.
non-instructional?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's that one. Thanks, Monica.
Jane,
Yes.
on that subject, how does that differ from the admin supplies?
I don't know.
Those would be the things that they would need to operate their offices. Pens, papers, calendars.
Paper is included.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of paper like stationery, so that they can all them next page. So that is out there. Anything that might need to get publications out. So those are the things that are going to be.
That's not in the general supplies.
No,
Right, it's in there.
because we said we get those, but then we have to use it.
Audience can't hear.
Yeah, can you use your microphone?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like I said,
I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
like I told you in my email. Been here, done that.
You guys can talk amongst yourselves until I find the next two. That's great.
Page
I know that, I gotta find the budget details.
So the 25,000?
Yeah, 22.7, I think, was the increase.
Yep.
So there was a reduction of 25. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Which one did you just get an answer to?
Oh, they found the corresponding drop rate.
Oh, okay.
Look at page 25 of the budget review.
659, page 25 on the budget.
Uniforms. Cheerleading, girls lacrosse, home away, football shoulder pads, football helmets. That's the bulk of that.
So some of those items are mandatory, i.e. football helmets have a lifespan.
Yeah.
They must be replaced. Shoulder pads are the same way. And uniforms are supposed to be replaced on is it a 7-year basis or a 5-year basis?
We're trying to work toward a 5-year basis.
So that's the intent, is these things have been around for several years and they're trying to replace them.
Okay.
So we put as few in as we can every year, but this is what comes up.
There's a significant increase here due to the football helmets and
And
pads.
pads, I believe.
What's the largest line item, Jane, for that increase?
I think it was the helmets and the pads, but let me go back to it. $659. Girls, huh? Yes, football, $9,200, $13,000 for football. Is that what you asked, John?
I did.
Yeah, is that what you asked?
And do we know, just so, when this is athletics, so I just want to make sure that we all understand that we don't do this every year, right? When was the last time helmets were purchased?
I'd have to check, because remember, the helmets have to be tested every year. And when they're tested every year, some of them are rejected so that they have to be replaced. And some of that is governed by that very fact of rejection.
Joe, to a question on that, yeah, Ethan Bryson Marvel. My understanding, did that include the uniforms though?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think the uniforms are closer to $10,000.
Well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It says football away only.
Right, those
I
are
don't know
uniforms.
what-
Those
so
are not
that must be-
helmet and shoulder pads have not been repurchased
That-
since the beginning of time.
The away football is the away jerseys. That's what that is.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not helmets.
It's not any equipment except for away gear.
And Ethan, since you're speaking about it, now's the time to ask, I'll ask a question. Who does pay for it?
Boosters. Boosters pays for all the actual equipment, helmet, shoulder pads, any practice equipment, practice uniforms.
Can you make sure you give your name?
He did.
So boosters meaning the
No,
parents.
there's a link to that.
Friends of Rham football.
Did you answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Yep. So now we're going back to 435.
Excuse me, would you just be clear on this point? How come then, if the boosters are paying for it, that there's a budget line item for that?
Yeah, so budget line item is not for helmets, but we were mistaken. The budget line item is for uniforms.
He just said the boosters paid for all that.
No, boosters pay for helmets and shoulder pads. Uniforms are the responsibility of the school.
Didn't he just say practice uniforms they pay for?
Yeah.
Yeah. You pay, the boosters play for practice, but the board pays for the regular
Home and away
game.
uniform.
You could save money just by having one uniform. This
No, you-
home and away thing sounds like the Patriots.
It's requirements of the league. You have to have, a home team has to wear a white jersey. You know, we're not making that,
No, I know.
that's sports. And that actually does go with any sport, really. So unfortunately, those are the CIAC rules.
You gotta have different colors jerseys. You have the same color.
If we could keep moving to 435. Oh.
Okay. $435. two. We have system-wide groundskeeping and we have athletics groundskeeping. The increase for system-wide is roughly $30,000, and that is due to give me a minute. This is the proposal from Hebron Parks and Rec to do the extra drainage on the west side of the cotton field, baseball, softball, infield field work, crown work to competition field.
The continued work in raising the crown on the top field.
So that's probably,
Drainage.
sorry.
And then we still have drainage issues on part of the top field. We've done 2 quarters so far, I believe. 2 quarters. So we have more to do there. And infield was the infield on top of the clay on the baseball and softball fields that helped. That allowed the, some of that was to help prevent some of the clay from blowing away, where we have to replace it frequently. So this mixture should help reduce that problem.
I don't know if that was,
I'm just confused on why one says groundskeeping and then athletics groundskeeping.
Because they have specific things, they separate specific things just for athletics. Painting, painting line. Yeah, that one. I can give you examples of what athletics groundskeeping is. And cost for Rham athletics, i.e. line paint, increase in usage due to field work done by Hebron Park and Rec, infield mix, drying agents, etc. So that is groundskeeping that's specifically designed for athletics, for the athletic fields. And that's why we break it out, we break it out that way. It's in your budget, you guys didn't bring it up. So,
Joe, is there a line item for irrigation?
Irrigation has been, was put under the
Capital.
capital,
Okay.
and irrigation will be done this year, so we have,
General maintenance.
Do we do have a line item, it's for water though?
Yeah, because we'll be doing some watering until the system is installed.
Right, I think Vinnie's question, Bob, is that, do we have a direct line item for water?
And that
And that
was,
was under utilities, is it, or?
yeah, that was under utilities, and one of the things we were doing when we were using the water cannon is we had to hook up to the hydrant. This way, when we put the irrigation in, we'll be hooking up to our own well and avoid that expense down the road.
Right. But also on irrigation, we weren't subcontracting out a lot of that stuff until Rich took over and then he began fixing a lot of the irrigation stuff himself.
I think that was part of our arrangement with him, but when we look at the middle school field, that's going to be an entirely new irrigation system. We would have to contract that out.
I think what, to add on to what Mr. Colonna is speaking about is that, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of what's going on with the field so people understand. When the field was built at this school, it was built upside down, meaning your typical ball field, grass field is topsoil, sand, and subbase. This field was built topsoil, subbase, sand, so the water cannot penetrate down or filter down to the subbase material. So we had substantial drainage issues here when contests were playing for soccer. My daughter was on the blunt end to this a couple years ago when we couldn't play a soccer tournament here. The girls worked really hard to earn their first place, undefeated, and we ended up playing our home tournament game down south, which we unfortunately lost. So at that, we have a drainage issue. We hired Mr. Clark on Hebron Parks and Rec, who's done a phenomenal job, who has come in and helped us get our field back. Put in drainage last year, I believe, on one section of the field that was extremely wet. That has worked very, very well. We have another wet field section that in the back that we're trying to eliminate that, the same process. So that was an increase. So, and then the crowning of the field. 4 years ago, we had the middle of the field stripped out, and no crown was ever put back on it. So part of our drainage issue is that we don't have a crown on the field. So we're adding each year $5,000 is the number that we've added to bring in sand and compost and to raise the crown so we have a crown on the field so we can deflect the water from the center of the field to the edges where we have the drainage. That is going to be another year to do. So we have, it's a 4 or 5 year project. Every year we allocate money for that. The infill mix that Mr. Jacobson was talking about is a newer product that people don't understand. Like we had this mix, sandy mix, didn't have a lot of clay content in it. And when the wind blows, that material blows away and eventually it just wears down. So this newer material that we're, an effort to save money, is to have this material put in, you wet it down, and it forms a like a hardener, and it keeps the material in the field. So we have our baseball field, our girls softball field, and the middle school field. And we're doing each one of those fields each additional year. This year it's the girls softball field, next year it'll be, I don't know, which whenever the maintenance department decides it's gonna happen to do. I do question, Jane, that number does seem high, knowing the numbers, so maybe we should look at that number. 29, the increase on South school-wide groundskeeping, if that is in fact what we're talking about, I don't think the drainage was that high, and I don't believe the materials were, I figured $10,000 in the sand and the clay, and we can go on.
So did you get your questions?
We have to look at object 435, because now that I'm looking at this, there was a reduction and there was an addition. So, and it also talks about this proposal from Parks and Rec, so, but I can look at that and send something to the board so that they can send it out for that. Make sure that I'm telling you the right thing.
Thank you very much for the input.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Clinton.
Mary Rose Mead, Hampton. I appreciate the budget overview. I feel like we need to talk about numbers, but we also have to talk about perception, because I really feel like on the one hand we have in this budget an administrative position being added in an athletic director, in a full-time athletic director. And then we're also talking about potentially cutting administration because of declining enrollment, or we're cutting teachers. So there's a lot on the line here if this budget doesn't pass. I mean, this board and the boards previously have worked very hard to protect the academic integrity of Rham. But we know that further cuts to staffing, if we lose teachers beyond what we're already losing, there is going to be a significant impact. When we went to the district meeting, there was sort of a budget presented, the board came and went into executive session, and extra athletics were added. Whether or not that's an astronomical number, there's a perception that something new is being added. And I will tell you, standing on lacrosse fields and being at Burnt Hill, people are not voting for this budget because of that perception. So maybe it's because you've raised pay to play, it's an even wash in your minds, but in the minds of the public, it's not. And so that's something that as the board continues to make its decisions, you have to realize it's a pretty significant gamble, because if this budget doesn't pass, we could end up truly having a huge negative impact on education here. I will tell you, the English department supply budget for next year is about $5,700. That $5,700 serves 1,474 students, grades 7 through 12, in all of our English reading, title reading, reading for success, AP, MCC courses, all of those courses. It's about $3.80 per student if you break it down. So from department budgets and from what we're going to offer academically, and let me tell you, we will deliver with that $3.80. But we have already, before that budget ever went to you, we had really tough decisions to make as department coordinators. Now, every department is looking at a bare bones budget, and people know that, and it's very hard to look at adding something that's extracurricular that serves about 50% of the population. I fully support Rham Sports. I think they're outstanding, building character. I would say that we have an opportunity to keep a part-time athletic director another year. And maybe everybody doesn't love him, but let me tell you, this man is respected. He's been a coach for Rham for over 20 years. He has been a vice president and president of the Connecticut High School Coaches Association. He's won their Coach of the Year award twice. He's won that national award once. He's run district meets. He is somebody who has delivered for us and helped maintain our program, and squandering that as a resource. And that's somebody we're not paying a huge benefits package to. So that is an expense that goes on with an added administrator. I think we need to be very, very careful, not just about numbers, but about perception. And it's something that has got to come into consideration as the board moves forward and makes decisions, because the impact of not passing this budget is going to be, I think, significant to programming and academics.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely agree with you on the perception issue here. Plus, on top of that, there's a lot of misinformation going out there. We are not changing from a part-time AD to a full-time AD. We currently have 2 part-time ADs. One is a .4 AD in the middle school, the other one's a .6 AD in the high school, and the proposal was to combine those to a single AD.
Do we pay benefits, health benefits for the high school AD? Do we pay for that part of, is that included in the salary? I know that the middle school, I believe, is a teaching position, so that person also teaches. But are we paying health and medical benefits? Because I know that's a significant part of,
So,
yeah.
as they've done in the past, you have to budget as if it's a person.
Right.
Just like we budget for whoever is going to get raises, so you have to budget as if the person gets benefits.
But do we pay benefits to the high school part-time? That's what I'm asking, is that, so if you go to a full-time, even if you're combining 2 positions, you still have to have a benefits package. If you don't combine this and you're saving on the benefits, that's what I want to know.
Well, you have 2, this is hard to do because you have 2 positions, both were receiving benefits, or both will be budgeted for benefits.
But are we paying benefits?
Hang on.
Yeah,
So you have 2 positions that both will receive benefits, correct? We're now making 1 position of those 2. So if you proportion the benefits on those 2,